Well, it is February 14th, 2025. I just parked back at the Colbert Ridge trailhead. Nice, easy parking spot. I think the only way to get here now is to drive on Highway 19 and then Highway 80, turn at that B&B grocery on the Colbert's Creek Road. Because Highway 80 coming up from Marion, traveling the north direction, is still closed, I believe. Typically, of course, the parkway would be the easiest way to get up to Mount Mitchell, but it is still closed from Hurricane Helene. The road to Mount Mitchell is on milepost 355, but looks like that area of parkway is going to take some of the longest of any road around to fix. My original plan was to hike up the Mount Mitchell trail that leads out of the Black Mountain campground, but the South Toe River Road that leads to that campground is still closed from hurricane damages. That trail is a couple of miles shorter than this one, but it looks like this might be one of the only legal ways to make it up to Mount Mitchell right now. This is some beautiful translucent bark. These iced over sections of trail are frozen super solid. They feel rock hard and are very slick. There are several small creeks that this trail crosses, and the rocks in those creeks are quite slick as well. Elisha Mitchell, who was the first guy to measure Mount Mitchell, died by slipping on one of those slick rocks and falling to the bottom of a waterfall and drowning. I believe he bumped his head and was unconscious from the fall. That waterfall is called Mitchell Falls, but it is on private property, so I can't show it to you. I guess I didn't get it in the video, but on the other side of that tiny little waterfall, there was a drop-off and the rocks were slick. So you can definitely understand how it would be easy for Dr. Mitchell to die that way. Walking through these hills and woods makes it easy to imagine the time when Elisha Mitchell lived. He was out here looking up at these peaks and thinking, like, I wonder which one is the highest. How far can I go up where there's nowhere else further to get to? Mitchell fell to his death at the age of 64 in 1857. We're catching some views of Cattail Peak and Potato Hill right there. We'll be walking over those when we get up to the Black Mountain Crest and Deep Gap Trail. There are several good campsites like this one on the Colbert Ridge Trail and the Deep Gap Trail. Careful, Luna, careful. This is a view off to the south, and the Colbert Ridge Trail pretty much goes directly west. And this is the view looking in the north direction. We are at the end of the Colbert Ridge Trail and now on the Black Mountain Crest Trail. But on my All Trails app, if you were to go away from Mount Mitchell, it's called the Black Mountain Crest Trail. But if you go towards Mount Mitchell, It's labeled the Deep Gap Trail. Elisha Mitchell died on his last expedition in the Black Mountains in 1857, but he had made several expeditions to explore the area starting in 1828. In 1828, Mitchell had hypothesized in his journal that Mount Mitchell, as it's called now, or Black Dome as he called it, was actually the tallest mountain in the east. At that time, it was thought by many that Grandfather Mountain was the tallest mountain around. And it does feel taller with all those sheer cliff edges and places to fall off. Now we know that Grandfather Mountain is 5,946 feet in elevation, while Mount Mitchell is 6,684. This sign is saying to make sure we stay on the trail because there's endangered and rare plants up here. This is a bear management area, I guess. This trail is well marked with the state park boundary signs and the orange triangle, and Colbert Ridge has the yellow diamond, both well marked. There are lots of red spruce and Fraser fir trees up here, like as in southern Canada or the New England area. Sadly, the woolly adelgid insects have been damaging the trees, but there's still a very nice selection of them here. Powerful winds up here are another threat to the trees. It's common to get wind gusts over 100 miles an hour, and of course a lot of these trees that are knocked over are from Hurricane Helene, but there's strong winds like frequently in non-hurricane season too. We are now walking due west, approaching the view from Balsam Cone. Now we're kind of looking in the northwest direction. You can see lots of those trees ruined by the woolly adelgid bugs and Hurricane Helene. Before his death in 1857, Elisha Mitchell had several notable trips to the Black Mountains, in which he actually measured with a barometer to see if his hypothesis that Black Dome or Mount Mitchell was indeed the tallest mountain. Here we are at the summit of Big Tom Mountain, named after Tom Wilson, who found Elisha Mitchell's body over a week after he had died. Wilson led a group of men to find Mitchell at the falls where he had died. He would have been 52 years old at this time, and he died later at the age of 84 in 1909. Wilson was a Yancey County man like me, with the initials of TW, also like me. Mitchell made his final expedition into the Black Mountains because his original findings, his original measurements, were being questioned by a politician and a former student of his named Thomas Klingman. After his initial 1828 expedition, Mitchell had returned in 1835 and in 1838 to measure the mountain with a barometer. He calculated that the mountain was 6,672 feet. He did this by comparing the barometric pressure at the top of the mountain to the barometric pressure at a known place in Morganton at a certain time of day when his assistant and he would both take measurements. Mitchell was a professor, an early professor, at the University of Chapel Hill in North Carolina. To reach the foothills of the mountains, he had to travel for an entire day each way in a horse and buggy. Here's an aerial view of the Mount Mitchell parking lot, but there's no cars in there today. When we see the picnic tables and grills and signage and stuff, it means we are getting close to the very top. After nearly 8 miles of hiking, we've reached the Mount Mitchell parking lot. Here's a sign for Elisha Mitchell, 1793 to 1857, scientist and professor, died in an attempt to prove this mountain highest in the eastern U.S. Grave is at the summit, 285 yards south. As with any hike in the mountains, it is important to dress in layers as it can be 15 or 20 degrees colder at the top than where you started, and 25 or 30 degrees colder than it is down in Asheville. Good girl. Here lies, in the hope of a blessed resurrection, the body of the Reverend Elisha Mitchell, D.D., who after being for 39 years a professor in the University of North Carolina, lost his life in the scientific exploration of this mountain in the 64th year of his age, June 27th, 1857. What a fantastic day. This is the view north facing towards Burnsville and Johnson City, Tennessee. Here's east looking towards Spruce Pine, Table Rock, and Lake James. There's a nice concrete compass. I really think they've done a beautiful job with this setup. There's Table Rock, pretty good visibility today. And time to head back down the mountain. I would love to stay for sunset, but since the parkway is closed, nobody can pick me up here, so I've got to hike back down to the Tow River. It feels so quiet and deserted up here, which is kind of rare because this park sometimes gets over 600,000 visitors in a year. Thank you, volunteers. It's interesting, that's a sign from CP&L, Carolina Power and Light. That company changed to Duke Power several years ago. I wonder what the highest elevation burial sites are in the United States. I know Elisha Mitchell's has got to be the highest one east of the Mississippi. He was originally buried in Asheville, but then later exhumed and moved to the top of Mount Mitchell. These ropes and poles to grab onto are new. Governor David Swain was in office from 1824 to 1830, and he initiated the project through the Chapel Hill University and Elisha Mitchell to measure the Black Mountain Range. Later on, another governor, Governor Craig, would be responsible for establishing the Mount Mitchell State Park as the very first state park around 1913. Some Craigs have a list named after them, but Governor Craig got a mountain named after him. Mount Craig is the second tallest mountain after Mount Mitchell at 6,663 feet in elevation. Mitchell might have lived several years longer. He was happy and confident in his measurement that he took in 1835 and 1838, and he really thought the mountain was 6,672 feet. But he made this final expedition in 1857 because Thomas Clingman, his former student, had been raising disputes since 1855 and having them published in newspapers and stuff that were saying he doubted Mitchell ever even climbed up to the tallest mountain. And he thought that another mountain that would become known as Clingman's Dome, it's on the border of Tennessee and North Carolina, but Thomas Clingman thought that that mountain was the highest. And so they had a bit of beef between them as to, who had the taller mountain. In 1881 and 1882, an official U.S. Geologic Survey determined Mount Mitchell to be 6,684 feet, which is just 12 feet higher than Mitchell's first measurement of 6,672. Clingman's Dome turned out to be the third tallest in North Carolina at 6,643. I guess no one can dispute that Mitchell made it to the highest peak back then and now. He's still there right now on the highest peak. The only damage from Hurricane Helene that I've really noticed on this trail is there's probably been 5 or 6 areas where I had to climb over the trees to get back down to the trail. But it's not too bad. Nothing like in Linville Gorge where there's like thousands of acres of downed trees. In the past year or so, I've found 4 different ways to hike up from down by a river and to hike up to the top of Mount Mitchell. And I really, really enjoy it and appreciate it up here, as obviously Mr. Mitchell did as well. He was really, really quite a guy. It's a big undertaking to do what he did and to have political drama infused in it from Clingman and to have to deal with that too. But he was quite a guy. He was actually born in Connecticut. He was a graduate of Yale University and educated in chemistry, biology, geology, and meteorology. And he was actually ordained as a Presbyterian minister as well. Of course, it's closed now due to the Parkway hurricane damage, but the Mount Mitchell Museum, if I remember correctly, it's been a long time since I've been in there, but the museum has a lot of Elisha Mitchell's personal stuff that he used in his expeditions. The red spruce and Fraser fir trees up here smell so great, especially now that the Forest Service has been cutting some of the ones that fell on the trail. Whenever I get back from one of these high elevation hikes, my wife remarks how good the dog and I smell. You'd think we would smell bad from being out moving and sweating all day, but that's just how good it smells up here. It makes us smell good too. Here we are looking kind of in the southeast direction. I think those are the lights of Old Fort and Marion. It is a mostly downhill hike back to the car, but it will be kind of slow because I'm going to take it easy. It's very dark, and I don't want to slip and pull a Mitchell. Here we are at the intersection of Colbert Ridge. We'll be taking that down back to the car, and Deep Gap and the Black Mountain Crest Trail. We've been following the orange triangles for Deep Gap Trail, but now I'll be looking for the yellow diamonds that mark Colbert Ridge. All right, we got back to this nice creek. I've been out of water for a bit, so I'm excited about getting some fresh water to drink. Oh, amazing that it's so cold, ice cold. Yeah. Perfectly clean. I've been listening to some scary outdoor camping stories on YouTube, so it's easy to let your imagination run away with these sounds out here. Really neat looking ice formations here. Yellow diamond means we are still on Colbert Ridge Trail. We have a little over a mile left. This trail is well marked. Oh, it's snowing now. I heard a really weird sound. Let's see if we hear it again. It sounded almost like 3 claps or 3 smacks against a tree branch or something. I did see an owl a while back. Not sure if that would be it, maybe. Trail maintained by NC High Peaks. Thank you, NC High Peaks, doing a great job. The moon is really powerful tonight in some areas. Yeah, there's lots of volunteer opportunities since Hurricane Helene, both picking up trash and clearing fallen trees out of the trails. All right, we're finally back to the parking lot. It's after 9:30, I believe, but I meant to get a shot of the parking lot in the daytime, but I was distracted because there was a Forest Service person here. Anyway, so happy to finally be out of the woods. You know you're getting close when you hear the river. Goodbye, Colbert Ridge.